They said double albums are usually bad. Too much filler, not enough brilliance to stretch that far. But Robert Smith never cared about what people said. For over 4 decades, he stood alone. Too weird for pop, too melodic for punk, too dark for the mainstream. A man whose tangled hair and smudged lipstick became symbols for an entire generation of outsiders. And through it all, he created music that made sadness sound beautiful. The Cure didn't follow trends. They built their own universe, one painted in heartbreak, hope, and haunted dreams. But before Robert Smith became the face of Gothic melancholy, he was just a lonely teenager in Sussex, headphones on, lost in the albums that would shape his world. These weren't just records. They were lifelines, proof that being different wasn't a flaw, it was power. Proof that you could be fragile and still be unstoppable. Today on Legend Uncovered, we look at the 7 albums that changed Robert Smith's life, the music that helped him turn pain into poetry and despair into something you could dance to. 7. The rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. David Bowie. When Robert first heard Ziggy Stardust in 1972, it was like a transmission from another planet. David Bowie didn't just make songs, he created a universe. Starman played like an alien calling out to every misfit kid listening through static radios. 5 years opened the record with Apocalypse and Beauty wrapped together. For the young Smith growing up in dull English suburbia, Bowie was a revelation, permission to be strange, theatrical, emotional. He made it okay for men to wear makeup, for vulnerability to look powerful. Bowie showed him that rock didn't have to fit in a box. It could be art, performance, identity, and rebellion, all at once. And behind the glitter and theatrics was sincerity. When Bowie sang Rock and Roll Suicide, Robert understood something essential. You could cry on stage and still be a god. 6. Electric Ladyland, Jimi Hendrix. Experience. Robert Smith discovered Electric Ladyland as a teenager, and it didn't just blow his mind, it rearranged it. Released in 1968, it was Jimi Hendrix at his most fearless. Voodoo Child stretched the blues into a cosmic experience. All along the watchtower burned with apocalyptic fire, and burning of the midnight lamp shimmered like sadness made sound. What moved Robert wasn't just Hendrix's skill, it was his atmosphere. He didn't just play the guitar, he spoke through it. It screamed, whispered, sighed, every note alive with emotion. Hendrix treated the studio like a new instrument. It wasn't about capturing sound. It was about building a world. That idea would stay with Robert forever. The Cure's shimmering guitars and echoing layers came from that same belief. That sound could feel infinite. And Hendrix taught him something else. You don't have to be the fastest player in the room, just the most honest one. 5. The Velvet Underground and Nico. The Velvet Underground in 1967, this record quietly changed music forever. No radio hits, no chart success, just raw truth. Robert heard Sunday Morning and felt peace. Then heroin followed and ripped that peace apart. Lou Reed sang about drugs, pain, and loneliness. Not to shock, but to understand. What Robert loved most was the bravery. The Velvet Underground didn't care about pleasing anyone. They made art because they had to. Nico's voice sounded like beauty and distance combined, like being surrounded by people and still completely alone. That feeling became the heart of the Cure's sound. The Velvet Underground taught Robert that sadness could be sacred, that you didn't need approval to matter. If your art was true, the right people would find it. 4. Strange Days. The Doors. Everyone praises the Doors' debut, but Robert was obsessed with Strange Days. It wasn't polished. It was haunting. From the opening title track to the eerie echo of People Are Strange. This was the sound of being trapped inside your own head and trying to dance your way out. Jim Morrison's lyrics spoke to Robert's teenage heart, the alienation, the detachment, the endless search for meaning. He wasn't preaching, he was confessing, and that keyboard-heavy sound, it hypnotized him. Without a bass player, the music floated, eerie, dreamlike, unpredictable. It showed Robert that atmosphere was everything, that sometimes a whisper could feel heavier than a scream. When The Cure built their sound on space, texture, and tension, you could hear the echo of Strange Days behind every note. 3. The Scream, Susie and the Banshees. By 1978, punk had started to eat itself, loud, fast, but empty. Then the Scream arrived, and everything changed. Susie Sue turned punk into art, fierce, intellectual, darkly beautiful. The opening track, Jigsaw Feeling, hit like a heartbeat in panic. Suburban Relapse felt like suffocation disguised as a song. For Robert, this album wasn't just influential, it was prophetic. It showed that you could be emotional and experimental at the same time. The Banshees were dangerous, but disciplined. Every sound mattered. Every silence, too. Robert later toured with Susie and even joined the Banshees for a short time. Their spirit, that fearless blend of chaos and control, became part of The Cure's DNA. Without the Scream, there might never have been 3 Imaginary Boys. 2. Revolver, the Beatles. By the time Robert Smith reached Revolver, he already knew the Beatles. Everyone did. But this was different. Released in 1966, Revolver proved pop could be profound. Eleanor Rigby told an entire life story in 2 minutes. Tomorrow Never Knows sounded like the future itself. And I'm Only Sleeping captured the beauty of doing nothing in a world that demanded everything. What Robert admired most was the balance, experimentation serving emotion. The backward guitars, the Indian influences, the studio tricks, all in service of feeling. He realized that sadness didn't have to shout. Sometimes it could whisper and still break your heart. That lesson echoed through The Cure's biggest songs, Just Like Heaven, Love Song, Friday, I'm in Love, pop melodies with real emotion, music that could live on the radio and in your soul. One songs of Leonard Cohen, and finally, the one that changed everything. Robert Smith was just a boy when he first heard Leonard Cohen's 1967 debut, and it stopped him cold. Cohen didn't sing, he spoke. His voice was deep, human, almost broken. But his words carried entire worlds. Suzanne was wisdom disguised as love. So Long, Marianne was goodbye, wrapped in beauty. Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye sounded like heartbreak, whispering through a quiet room. Cohen proved you didn't need noise to have power. You didn't need to scream to bleed. Sadness could be quiet, and still devastate. Robert learned that vulnerability was strength, that sometimes the softest songs leave the deepest scars.
Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon.